Assault investigation lands one of the members of
Pawn
Pawn
Stars
Stars
made
in
its
trouble.
cast rich,
Austin Russell,
famous,
better
and
known as
recognizable
Chun-Li, is
around the
in jail
world.
tonight.
But for some of them, the story didn't end there. As Rick Harrison and his crew turned the gold and silver pawn shop into a television phenomenon, viewers saw a world of rare treasures and big money deals. What they didn't see were the tragedies, scandals, and personal battles with the law that were quietly changing the lives of some of the people behind the show. Which Pawn Stars cast members faced devastating losses? And who found themselves in serious legal trouble? Join us as we uncover the Pawn Stars cast members who passed away or faced major legal problems. The Harrisons' head, tragic loss to Parkinson's. Anyone who has watched Pawn Stars knew who Old Man Harrison was. Richard Benjamin Harrison, globally known as the Old Man, was the stern, dry-witted patriarch of the gold and silver pawn shop. He was the grumpy grandfather figure who co-founded the pawn shop with his son Rick back in 1989. Fans loved his amazing ability to shut down a bad deal with just one look, and his dry humor topped everything off, making him an instant favorite among those who watched the series. Sadly, in 2017, the Old Man retired from the show due to his declining health. He was already 77 years old at the time and was in a constant battle with Parkinson's disease. In that year, it got so rough that it was getting harder for him to appear on camera. Parkinson's is a brutal disease, and even though his family chose to keep the details private, it was evident that it wasn't easy. Later reports focus on his final seasons. In most of the few episodes he appeared in, he was mostly immobile. Although frame shifts and editing took most of these on-camera struggles out, it was still evident how much slower he had become. Parkinson's is horrible. It severely impacts a person's coordination and gait. Over time, patients take much smaller steps, shuffle when they walk, and experience extreme instability that leads to frequent falls. The disease causes muscles to remain constantly contracted. This leads to severe body stiffness, a hunched or bent-over posture, and deep muscle pain. Most times, it also involves involuntary shaking, which slowly takes over the whole body. At the same time, the person typically has to deal with weakened speech muscles, which causes a patient's voice to become incredibly soft, quiet, or monotone, which may explain why Old Man Harrison spoke less in later episodes. Patients also experience irregular brain chemistry that leads to heavy exhaustion, insomnia, and disrupted sleep patterns. As a result, they usually develop a type of mental disorder, impacting memory, mental sharpness, and general physical stamina, making daily operation of a high-traffic business impossible. Ultimately, Richard's desire for privacy allowed him to maintain his famous, sharp-tongued television persona without the public focusing on his physical decline. But watching someone decline like that is heartbreaking, especially when they've always been a strong and independent person. After a long back and forth with the painful symptoms, on June 25, 2018, Richard Harrison passed away at the age of 77. The Old Man spent his final days away from the cameras and the public eye at his home in Las Vegas. His family confirmed that during that weekend, his immediate relatives, including his wife Joanne, his children and grandchildren, all gathered at his bedside to say their final goodbyes before he passed away on Monday morning. The staff at the gold and silver pawn shop also set up a temporary memorial right by the front doors. And to honor his daily routine, employees displayed his favorite front row chair and his iconic black fedora, so fans visiting Las Vegas could pay their respects. Because the Old Man was incredibly proud of his 20-year career in the United States Navy, his family also made sure his final services reflected his military background. At his funeral service in Las Vegas, his casket was draped in an American flag, and he received full military honors during his burial. Before and after his death, his life was never truly smooth sailing. At certain points, some large controversies threatened his name and legacy, one time involving his wife and the other at the detriment of his own child. Joanne Rue Harrison's lawsuit. After the old man's death, his wife, Joanne Rue Harrison, filed a lawsuit against their son, Rick Harrison. This happened because of how much his loss, coupled with the pandemic, affected them. It was a high-profile, bitter civil battle over the ownership of the gold and silver pawn shop. The lawsuit, aside from adding to the bitterness from the loss, also exposed intense internal family arguments that had been going on for years. Filed in February 2022 in Clark County District Court in Nevada, Joanne's breach of contract lawsuit made several major accusations against Rick. The first was an ownership dispute. Joanne claimed that while she was hospitalized around the year 2000, Rick had her sign over her 51% controlling ownership stake in the pawn shop. She argued that he took advantage of her illness, knowing she would not be able to fully understand what she was signing at the time. The second was about the sharing of her late partner's property. She alleged that following his death in 2018, even though she inherited his remaining 49% share of the business, her son failed to provide her with complete financial documentation or pay out distributions that matched her equity. She also claimed that before her husband died, he had accumulated around $500,000 in silver bars and $100,000 in cash. But for some reason, Rick had failed to properly account for their disappearance. It didn't end there. The lawsuit also stated that from 2018 to 2020, Rick used to pay Joanne a steady $25,000 per month to cover her standard living and 24-hour medical caretaker expenses. However, Rick unilaterally reduced the payments by a whole $5,000 and then stopped them entirely in March 2020, when the COVID-19 pandemic began. Coupled with this, she also claimed her son took out a $3 million loan from Nevada State Bank by secretly using her personal assets as collateral. Through his spokespeople, Rick Harrison publicly denied the claims. He stated publicly that he believed his mother was being manipulated by selfish naysayers for a hidden agenda. His team also presented financial records to back his defense. These records showed that the gold and silver pawn shop had taken a massive financial hit during the pandemic. During COVID, the shop's net income dropped from the $1.3 million high in 2019 to a very low $37,000 figure, which explains the unusual money distributions. His mother didn't back down despite the evidence in front of her. And in March 2022, she filed for a temporary restraining order to force Rick to resume the $25,000 monthly medical distributions. Rick chose to leave this to his team and not address the restraining order publicly like before. But the bitter dispute came to an end when his mother passed away at the age of 85 on November 5, 2025, while hospitalized in Las Vegas. Following her death, the outstanding legal claims were dropped, and that marked the end of the mother-son case. Unfortunately for the Harrison family, the loss of two main members didn't mean the end of their issues. One more painful occurrence took place: the Harrisons' third loss. In 6 years, this time, Rick's son was the victim facing a serious illness. Adam Harrison was Rick Harrison's second son, the one most fans of Pawn Stars never really got to know. Everyone knew Corey, or Big Hoss, the guy who grew up right there in the shop, trading jokes and antiques on camera with his dad and grandpa. As the eldest son, Corey became a familiar face and a kind of bridge between generations of the Harrison family. But Adam? He chose a different path. Unlike his brother, Adam stayed completely off-screen. He worked with the family business early on, but left after realizing he didn't love the spotlight quite as much. He preferred a quieter life, one without the cameras, high-stakes negotiations, or the fame that came with reality TV. He lived a remarkable life behind the scenes, living life to the fullest. But on January 19, 2024, that quiet life came to a heartbreaking end. At 39 years old, Adam was found dead at his home in Las Vegas. At first, the reports were all over the place, and the investigators suspected an overdose or even severe food poisoning. But a few weeks later, the Clark County Coroner's Office confirmed the former. According to their reports, Adam's death was caused by an accidental overdose involving fentanyl and methamphetamine. The coroner made it clear there was no sign he meant to take his own life, and even though they couldn't clearly decipher what he was trying to do, all that could be said was, it was an accident, and they would still continue with the investigation. Some reports even tried referencing his past involvement with substances. Adam Harrison battled a severe, long-term substance abuse problem that spanned nearly 2 decades before his accidental death. While he never appeared on Pawn Stars, his father, Rick Harrison, has been deeply candid about Adam's history of addiction on the show. In an in-depth interview on Graham Benzinger, Rick Harrison disclosed that Adam's severe drug problems began when he was in his 20s. Rick stated that he personally paid to put Adam through rehab so many times, but every time his late son completed a program, he would briefly do well before ultimately falling back into addiction. According to his family, his struggle started after being introduced to alcohol via peer pressure and opioids one time when he was sick. Over time, his dependency worsened and transitioned into heavier street drugs like heroin. An official police incident report obtained by the New York Post revealed that Adam's addiction had caught up with him legally once before. It happened during the few months leading to his death. During this time, he had reportedly spent months behind bars on drug-related issues. And after being released from jail, Adam and his friends moved into a guest house in the Las Vegas area. His roommates later told police that in those days, Adam was exhibiting highly erratic, strange behavior and had completely barricaded himself inside his room. At the scene, police found foil, narcotic pipes, and drug paraphernalia straws. Rick Harrison later stated publicly that his son did not intend to take fentanyl, but that all the smaller-tier drugs nowadays are secretly laced with deadlier substances to increase addiction. He made sure to condemn the practice every chance he got, whilst also expressing deep grief and regret. It was tough on him to lose such a young child whom he loved dearly. The family also released a statement stating how much they were saddened and wished to remain private. In conjunction, the History Channel announced that Adam's death wouldn't be addressed on Pawn Stars. They made the decision to respect the family's privacy and not turn their personal tragedy into a storyline on the show. In Rick's family's history, it was a tale of constant ups and downs, while one died and the other faced numerous battles with the law. Corey's failed test at past midnight. Corey Harrison, a staple of Pawn Stars since its inception, has faced several legal hurdles that have occasionally punctured his public image as the shop's manager. The most significant incident occurred in the early hours of September 8, 2023, in downtown Las Vegas. At approximately 2 a.m., a police officer observed Corey's Ford F-250 swerving between a travel lane and a bike lane. After being ordered to pull over via a PA system, Corey exhibited signs of intoxication, including bloodshot eyes and a blank stare. In his defense, he claimed that he hadn't drunk for a while, and his last drink had been served 7 whole hours earlier on his flight from Minneapolis. So, according to him, there was no way he was still tipsy. Despite failing all the tests that were thrown his way, he was still vocal in his defense, attributing his reckless driving to a misalignment in his truck and his poor balance to a severe poison ivy infection on his leg. He further challenged the validity of the failed test results, citing uneven pavement and a nearby shooting that distracted the officers during the evaluation. While he was eventually booked on suspicion of DUI, the ultimate legal outcome was never publicized, and his television career has continued without any interference. The truth is, this was not Corey's first brush with the law. In 2011, he was arrested following a bar fight where he allegedly pushed a security guard and a deputy. Eventually, he was released without charges since no evidence could be found against him. Before this, his record also includes a 2006 charge for the possession of drug paraphernalia. But the Harrisons weren't the only cast members dealing with legal or tragic issues. Another popular character had his own fair share too. Chumlee's Trials and Tribulations. The rise of Austin "Chumlee" Russell is often viewed through the lens of comedy, but his journey to global fame was preceded by a large personal tragedy. In 2009, just weeks before he was meant to make his TV debut, and the Pawn Stars show was set to premiere, his father succumbed to pancreatic cancer at the age of 54, and the timing was exceptionally cruel. Since his father passed away on the cusp of his son's transformation into a nationwide household name, he never got to witness the success that would define Chumlee's adult life. And he too never got to properly repay his father for all he had done in his life. This loss stayed with him, eventually serving as the primary catalyst for a radical change in his personal lifestyle. Watching his father die young prompted Chumlee to address his own deteriorating health. At the time, he weighed over 350 pounds and maintained a poor diet. So, realizing he was following the same path that led to his father's early death, he got motivated and eventually underwent gastric sleeve surgery. This, combined with a commitment to exercise, allowed him to lose over 160 pounds, dropping his weight from 350 to a lean 190. Any chance he gets, he frequently cites his father's death as the wake-up call that forced him to take his physical well-being seriously. Unfortunately, the struggles didn't just stop here for him. Even after he became a household name, he had his own fair share of trouble. Unlike some of the others, Chumlee's presence at the gold and silver pawn shop was not the result of a casting call, but a lifelong bond. As a childhood friend of Corey Harrison, he had been a fixture in the Harrison family's life long before the cameras arrived. He began working at the shop at age 21, performing odd jobs and slowly becoming an integral part of the business's daily operations. When the show launched, his persona as the lovable goofball resonated with audiences, making him a breakout character who was often more recognizable than Rick or the late old man. However, navigating sudden fame while grieving his father was only the beginning of a much more tumultuous chapter. On March 9, 2016, the public narrative of the quirky TV personality was shattered when Las Vegas police executed a search warrant at his home. The raid was initially sparked by an investigation into a sexual assault allegation made by a shop employee. Even though evidence was never found to support this claim, the search warrant led to discoveries that created another massive out-of-context legal crisis. Inside his residence, officers found a large stash of narcotics, including methamphetamine, marijuana, and Xanax, without a prescription, alongside evidence of cocaine use. They also discovered a collection of firearms. Before even waiting for much confirmation, Chumlee was arrested on the spot and charged with 20 felony counts. 19 of these were related to drug possession, while the 20th was a felony weapons charge for being an unworthy person in possession of a firearm. In Nevada, it is a crime to possess firearms while also in possession of controlled substances. Regardless, Chumlee decided he wasn't going to let this derail his career. Facing a potential prison sentence that would have ended his career and freedom, Chumlee and his legal team negotiated a plea deal in May 2016. He pleaded guilty to the felony weapons charge and a gross misdemeanor for attempted drug possession. Thankfully, in exchange for his plea, the remaining 18 felony charges were dismissed, and he was sentenced to 3 years of probation and mandatory counseling, with the condition that the felony would be removed from his record if he completed the requirements and remained out of legal trouble. Perhaps the most unexpected aspect of the scandal was the reaction of the Pawn Stars family. In an industry where a single arrest often leads to immediate termination of contract and character, Rick and Corey Harrison chose loyalty over media opinion. Rick issued a public statement offering his support, while Corey reaffirmed their lifelong friendship on social media. This solidarity was rare for a high-profile television production, but it ensured Chumlee's continued role on the show once his legal obligations were met. Today, Chumlee remains entirely free and continues to star on Pawn Stars, where he serves as a fan-favorite cast member. Concurrently, he is a successful entrepreneur in Las Vegas, managing his popular specialty candy store, Chumlee's Candy, on Las Vegas Boulevard. What do you think of the tragedy Chumlee faced before Pawn Stars? And what would you have done if you got left out of a will like Christopher? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.